Welcome to the Trail Chasers podcast. I'm your host, Dean Horwitz, and I'm excited to share this journey with you. Each week, we'll be hitting the trails with some of South Africa's most inspiring trail runners, diving into the topics that matter most and uncovering the secrets of this incredible sport. Lace up your trail shoes and join me on this adventure. New episodes every week. How's it, guys? Welcome back to the Trail Chasers podcast. Let's kick it off. How did the race go?
Sure.
How long do you have?
You got 8 days.
Ups and downs, eh?
Yeah.
Race, I guess. Yeah. But generally, we're alive and we finished, so it went well. I'd say.
How do you recover? Take me through from like the moment you finish the race until now. Do you have like a routine, or is it just sleep, eat as much as possible?
Nailed it.
Well, you're on the spot there, Dean.
Obviously, physically and mentally exhausted, so just try and catch up on as much sleep as you can. Your brain is quite fuzzy and takes quite a while to get that fuzziness out of your system, I suppose. Now I can't even find the words to talk. But yeah, I think it takes about a month or so for your body physically to recover. Yeah. Don't know about you guys.
Yeah, probably about a month. But it was quite funny yesterday. I was doing a bit of work on the computer, catching up, and then we obviously all unpacking boxes and everything. But just these three, they kept, like, one would come down and they would do some cleaning or something for like 15 minutes and disappear. And then someone else would come down, and then it just, there wasn't like a coordinated thing. Everyone was almost just walking around in a daze. And like, what I need to do now, and they would do something for like 10 or 15 minutes and then off to sleep or off to, oh, what was I doing? It's yeah, so it's that state of just trying to readjust back into normality. And it sounds really weird that we're only actually out there for 5 days, but you go to the zone and you put your body and your mental and your spiritual self through all these just hardships for that amount of time, and then come back. It does just takes a time, for that brain fog to wear off.
It's a homeostasis thing, where your body, you come back and it's trying to return to neutral. And so you tend to start sorting out gear. You go about sorting out your gear, washing things and packing things away and all of that. And then included in that is your sleep and your meal and all that,
And lots of eating, obviously, too, because your system's still, your metabolism is still quite high and still thinks that you're on the go. So you just want to everything that you see.
I always claim that that's one of my main reasons for adventure racing is being able to eat anything and everything all the time, whenever I want. For a good, I'd call it 2 weeks, but it probably should just be a week.
Yeah.
Amazing. How did this compare to previous races across the board in terms of difficulty level, in terms of experience?
People often ask, like, what's your toughest race, or was it tough? And right now, this is the race that's right in our minds. So yes, it was tough. It was. Physically, this was a really, really hard race, just with the ups and downs and the vert. We were either going basically uphill or downhill, pretty much the whole race. And then added to that was the extreme heat and humidity down in the lowlands. And even when we came up high, you still had to battle with the heat and the sweating and stuff. So physically it was a really, really tough race. Fun, brutal. Probably a bit harder than we had anticipated in terms of the altitude. Well, not the altitude, in terms of how the ascents and the climbing we would handle that. Ranking it up there with all other races, there's heaps of tough races. I think every adventure race. And if it's tough, then you just go faster and you make it tougher. So, but this was, it was brutal and harder.
In terms of like the actual experience?
Oh, no, I mean, Ecuador, truly beautiful country. I think the landscape there were some moments on that race where, just very picturesque. Obviously, we know Ecuador's mountainous, but beautiful jungle sections. On the one trek, we trekked up to the summit, and then you got these beautiful views. You almost felt like you were in the Swiss or French Alps, and you got the little town down below, and you making this big descent down into the town. So it was very. I think you could draw a lot from the race in terms of its beauty. Definitely had some special memories, and even like late evenings on the sunsets, you got this in these forest areas, and you got this light shining through the forest, and it's like magical moments like that which just sit in your mind and cherish those. So it's great. Very privileged to have traversed some of it.
Adding on to what Leo said, obviously it was absolutely stunning with all the jungle, and the rivers were the one that we did paddle at. Half of it we paddled at night. Also the people and the culture. We there's loads of stories that we have integrating with the locals and
to communicate.
And eating the local food, and it was really special.
Amazing. You talk about that kind of expectation versus reality. So did it meet those expectations in terms of the experience, but then also, I guess, in terms of like your challenge, and your preparedness, did that kind of meet the reality, meet the expectation, or were there kind of things which you were totally unprepared for?
I don't think we were unprepared. No, I think we were well prepared, and I think it's obviously something we still need to discuss, but maybe our team strategy didn't play out how we wanted, and we didn't maybe get up as high as we would have liked in the result sheet, but at the end of the day, we're still happy and content as we crossed the line. I think Shale said something, she can remember what she said when we arrived back at the house the other day, and hopefully she can repeat it now. Maybe we could have gone harder, maybe we couldn't have, I don't know, but remember what you said?
I think I said something along the lines as, although we didn't get the result we wanted, we gained in other areas, made the most of being out there and soaking up the culture and the scenery and everything like that. So it's rich in experience rather than an amazing result.
It's still an amazing 5 days. We had an amazing 5 days, seeing all the stuff. Again, also just the physical and mental and spiritual challenge and pushing yourselves through all those limits. So you still have all of that accomplishment personally when you cross the line. You each have those in your own unique way. And then obviously team, cool, we got through it and we're still talking. We didn't have dynamic issues, and we ultimately had fun as well. So it doesn't like it right now, but we probably did.
It's also one of the charms of the sport, I think, is going in not really knowing what's ahead of you and just having to prepare for anything that the terrain or the course chucks at you. And so obviously we try to prepare for what we thought was going to happen. And I think, as Graham said, we prepared pretty well, came in feeling pretty strong and confident and injury-free relatively. And I think we dealt with everything as it should have been. Maybe the strategy didn't pan out as we had hoped, but we still had a very successful race, got to the finish, healthy, happy, strong.
Still friends.
But I think one of the beauties of adventure racing is really expecting the unexpected and just dealing with it, whatever pans out in front of you.
It's that unpredictability. There's things that can always go wrong in a race, and we had a few of those that did happen, but you've got to manage it as it happens. Try and make the best call in the moment. Just keep going.
And, you say at this point you didn't get the result. You say you haven't had time to chat about it, but what do you attribute that to? Was it just terrain-wise, or, have you had a chance to reflect on that?
I think we probably each individually maybe have a little bit in our semi-phased and fog stage for the last 2 days, but as a team, no, not just yet. Hopefully we will. We'll sit down and.
In terms of the terrain, what was that like? Did that kind of meet the expectation? Was it a lot of climbing? Weather-wise, how was that?
I think the total of the whole race was about 17,000 meters elevation gain.
I think we worked out it was actually 19. My watch died with about 20 hours to go, and it had 7,000 elevation on when it died, and we still had hours. And there was a lot of climbing that last 20 hours.
There's no flat land in Ecuador. It was either up or down. And then we had massive showers, and it turned we were in the jungle at that point, and the trail was just completely turned to mud. like the type of mud that where you stand in, you just sink, almost to your ankles, which made a tough trail even tougher. Like we had about one section of the bike was about a 6K descent, which could have taken us probably
half an hour.
20 minutes on a normal,
descent, which ends up being 3 hours. So.
Yeah, the mud just sticks to your tires and even pedal.
Can't even push your bike.
Yeah.
It's too heavy to carry. Yeah, conditions were tough, but that's a challenge.
That's the thing of racing over a number of days, is you get different conditions, and it just makes it that more challenging. I think also with the climbing on the bike legs and things, you were there again at like 3,000 meters above sea level, so that altitude, and then we were sitting between 2 and 3 for long periods, but then also dropping right down to say 800 meters above sea level, and then having to climb back up to 300. So it just felt like we were going up the whole race, really.
And what is for each of you, what is the most challenging leg of the race?
I don't think I have a leg. Out of the 6, I don't have one that stands out as the most challenging. They were all challenging at various points. I think for me, they're probably challenging right from the start to the finish of every leg. There wasn't actually any 3 miles, really. Even the downhills weren't 3 miles. One leg that stands out is more challenging than the others. They actually all were challenging. And there weren't any not free legs, but there weren't any transition legs, which sometimes you get in the big races. When there are longer legs, or there are 8, 9, 10 legs, you might get a transition leg that's, a few hours long, which tends to be a little bit easier. There were none of those in this race. It was just really hard, brutal legs.
Wow. You go through patches within the leg, like, there might be a section that stands out of my head was us going through the jungle at 3 a.m. in the mud. You very sleep deprived, and you're really struggling to stay awake on your feet, and it's just sloppy mud everywhere, and that's tough. Or another example was on the second bike leg, or low down in the lowlands, and it's just hot and humid, and you're completely soaked with sweat, and you don't know whether to dry yourself or drench yourself with water, and you just feel so uncomfortable, but you just got to keep pushing through this unescapable heat. So it's kind of those moments within the legs which definitely stand out, and I think we all experienced the toughness equally at that moment. But those are kind of just snippets within, and then you go through highs. You reach the top of a peak at sunrise, and you're feeling top of the world, and all feeling good, and we're joking around, and you can really feel the energy of the team rising and feeling stoked, or you pass a couple of teams and you riding this wave of energy, and so definitely going through dips and troughs and peaks within the legs, for sure.
I think it was really tough just because of all the elevation. I think a lot of it came at the end of the race, which obviously then you've had time. You in
100 hours.
100 hours into the race, and you've got still lots of climbing to go. So I think for me, those last 3 legs were quite brutal. They just taxed the body quite a bit.
How did you manage the fatigue, as you were saying? Like you were sleep deprived. How did you manage that through the race?
You just one foot in front of the other. I think you go through ups and downs. So there's times where you're feeling really good, and you move along at a really decent pace. And there's other times where you're down and you're fatigued and sleep deprived, and the other 3 guys are strong. You just got to suck it up. I think you just learn to be able to push through. We did, as a team, we slept a huge amount when we actually did the sums. When we did the sums and added up how much we'd slept, I was quite shocked, actually. But because then if you compare it to probably the teams in the top 10, we probably slept more than double that what all of them did. Which again, obviously, we need to look at our strategy and stuff. It made us. That's the way we race, and that's the way we get what we did.
What was our total sleep?
15.5 hours sleep for
over 130
at the 130 hours racing. So that averages out to 3 hours sleep a night. But usually feel pretty tired just after the sun went down, and decided we'd have a little sleep then, find a nice, comfortable shelter so you're not exposed to the elements and the dew and everything. So, yeah, we'd sleep. Most nights we slept early, and that avoided just plodding on and going at a slow pace. So you would have a good sleep and then carry on in the dark.
Sure. And yeah, I mean, reflecting on that, like, is it, or how do we sleep less? Or is it like, is that not a factor? Does that not factor in? It's just, you've got to get, like, the other parts are where it was lacking.
I think it balances itself out. I think you sleep more, you might be able to move more quicker through some of the sections. I think it's just timing in a race. It's like, probably, like in hindsight, maybe you sleep less, and then you depending where you are in the race. So if we were at the top half with the guys up at the front, we maybe would have slept less to hang around with them, and stay with the guys. Because in the moment, you're racing and teams in front of you, so you've got extra motivation, and you're watching when they're sleeping. You have your initial strategy, how much hours you want to sleep, but in the race itself, you make the decision to change it depending on where you are in the field and depending on what you want to do. I think for us, we found ourselves at the back of the field early on in the race because we had a bike mechanical early on, right on the first stage, which basically we were in last position and had to work our way.
Wow.
So it meant, these are the unpredictable factors in a race that can happen. So you just got to manage it and deal with it, and then just try to keep to your initial strategy, but be flexible within that.
But in adventure race, sleep is definitely one of the biggest strategies. It's when do you sleep, where do you sleep, and how long do you sleep for? That's a big factor.
Yeah.
It's interesting, like watching the race pan out, and you start seeing the teams who've really tried to go through with minimal sleep, and you start seeing those teams' wheels fall off, especially when there's very tricky navigation or really tough sections towards the end. Those teams tend to start dwindling away because they try to push through not having as little sleep as possible. So it really just depends on how the race pans out, and it's also one of the fun things to see in the dynamic of the sport is the various sleep strategies and how they pan out. And ours was initially to focus on having quality sleep and coming through the field strong, which I think we did, especially considering we were stone last at the start and ended up 17th. That's not to be sniffed at. But then some teams in this race really kept the sleep minimal, and it tended to pay off because there wasn't as much technical navigation towards the end, which I think played in their favor.
And tell me about that. You mentioned the mechanical. So what actually happened there? And how did that kind of affect things and change the strategy?
Well, it happened right at the start. We had 4 minutes before the gun went, my tire started to just lose all its pressure. And valves were like, oh, flip, okay, we get bombs out. Started use 2 bombs on the tire. It seemed to hold for a period. We managed to start, but we're at the back, and then we got through the town, and we had to collect the mats outside the town next to a little point there next to the river, and we got the mats, and we were on the go, and we're behind. We got out in the front with the front teams, and we were on our way climbing up the first hill, and we had just come around a traffic circle heading out towards our first checkpoint, and the next thing, boom, one of my teammates is like, Leo, your tire's flat. So I'm like, oh, flip. Anyway, then Graham was looking around. He's like, no, flip, we don't have bombs, so we need to save some of our bombs for the rest of the race. So we were looking around for a place that had a compressor or something like that. Then we basically had to just redo the whole valve for the tire. Use the compressor, pump it up completely just to let it seal properly. And then, thankfully it came right. But basically all the teams passed us at that point. And so we were on the back foot there, and then needed to slowly work our way up the field there.
And straight after that, made a navigational error, which again also cost another 10, 15 minutes. So, within the first 20 minutes of the race, we had lost half an hour. Because the whole field is close together, we were then right at the back. So, like in a long race that's 100 hours long, as the predicted winning time, it wasn't a big thing. In the big scheme of things, you've got to suffer the 10 or 15 minute or half an hour issues and just develop with them. And we did. So for us, it didn't really change things. But what it did is it took us away from the teams that we were potentially racing. So instead of then being sucked along, maybe along with the top 20 or the top 10, we were now right at the back, sort of just plodding along at our own speed. And, maybe that then affected us later in the race or not. I don't know, but we'll never know. But yeah, overall, I think it actually probably.
Yeah.
No.
But I think mentally what it does is it just does that shift, you kind of like you feel like you catch up. And whereas with you, when you're in the front pack, you ride the wave. You're there and you can stay with you're there with the group battling, and then I think a different sort of mindset kicks in, which helps, gives you that drive to to keep going. Not that we didn't have that, but it just changes things slightly.
How did your team dynamics, how did that evolve? How did that play out? Were you all pretty happy with how that went?
Yeah, I think so.
There was no boxing that happened.
So we all get on very well. I think we've got a good team dynamic. I think we're all fairly experienced adventure racers and understand that you have to work together. Can't have issues, otherwise it just doesn't work. So you've got to put that aside and be bigger than the moment. And if there is something, if there is a squabble or whatever, you've got to just, for the sake of the team, we move forward and don't let those little things get to you, because they're not important. So I think that's where we're good. And I don't think we had one fight on the race, or you can call it that. I think we all
went in understanding how we were going to do things. So we might have had discussions around, should we sleep now or should we sleep later? But then again, it was a discussion. We would all communicate. We would all communicate our points or whatever, and ultimately the team would reach a decision. And it wasn't, though it might have been, cool, I'm not sleeping when I preferred to sleep, but as a team, it was like, okay, cool, we've made the decision and we now go with it, we're happy, and we'll continue with the thing. But there's no at all. It's actually good.
The key for racers is you can't rely on decisions. You got to be decisive. So you decide, you have the discussion, make the decision, and that's it. And you stick with it.
We were in one transition, to give an example of how it could go the other way, where there was a team who, they were speaking Spanish. They were a Costa Rican team and Ecuadorian team. And we could sense there was a dynamic going on, and Cheryl inquired, like, those things she is. And they opened up and they said that, it was just before a big trekking leg, and they were just disputing whether they should carry on, because the one guy thought he could only get through in about 36 hours, and the other three thought, no, they needed to go faster, and they just couldn't decide whether to even go on or not, because they had very differing views of how they were going to get through. And some of them didn't want to take 36 hours, but one of them felt like he couldn't do any better. So they were like, cool, well, let's just throw in the towel, and that's how it can pan out if you're not aligned in your approach or thinking or your dynamic or your strategy. And I think we have enough practice together to know that our dynamic and our approach and our strategy is aligned. And I think that's probably very important going in. Otherwise, we'll have a little blowout for sure.
Yeah. And personally, what was the kind of most rewarding part of the race for each of you?
Finishing. Not having to go uphill anymore.
Knowing that you could have a shower, brush your teeth, lie in a nice, comfortable bed once you're done, and totally deserved it.
I think that, obviously both those comments, so cliched was that, I don't know if that's like, yes, cool, the most rewarding thing finishing, but I don't know, for me, the most rewarding thing in any of these big races is just having got through 130 hours and having gone through all that hardship and that adversity, just pushing through and coming through the other side. Obviously, there's many times in those hours where you're going like, what the hell am I doing, or why, or It was unpleasant. It was just horrible. And then, like Ron says, the many times where there's lots of the highs. So for me, that, the high point is just actually achieving it and getting through, and always achieving way more than you think you can at any point in the race. But you just, at the end of the day, you come through, and here we sit, and we've done it, and we've achieved it. So,
but there are lots of small little moments within a race, like we have said before, that are just highlights and will always stand out in your mind. For me, the one that jumps out is we were climbing out of the abseil, climbing up the hill, and there were these two about 7-year-old girls on the side next to their house, and the one girl just locked eyes with mine, and she walked up towards me and gave me a red rose, and it touched my heart, and that'll stick with me forever.
Sure.
Yeah. I think from my side, I think these races, they're always adventure racing. You suffer a lot, and I think as humans, I think we designed, in such a way that suffering actually brings the best out of us. I think it's an integral part of life, and I think you experience your most joy when you suffer. And I think the suffering, there's this great parallel between suffering and joy and what you experience in that moment. And for me, it's just being out there in God's creation as well, just seeing that beauty, experiencing that, for me, just draws me close to Him. And I feel that those are the most special moments in a race for me. And then doing it with a team, I think a team dynamic, I'm not saying I've learned this lesson yet, but you have to really think about others. And I think that's the beauty of it, is that you put away the selfish side of you. You have to try anyway, even if you haven't learned that lesson yet, whatever, but it makes you, I think it makes you a better person. It makes you, lessons I've learned, life lessons I've learned through adventure racing.
When you're having those kind of low moments, where did the motivation come from to push on individually and as a team? And did you have any sense of what was going on the WhatsApp group?
No sense.
No sense of, so we didn't have any understanding of any social media at all during the race. So it's actually quite a blessing to be cut off from that for a nice week. I think, we didn't have, but I think Merrell goes in with the mentality of, we start, we finish, and we just hold to that, Depending on how the race goes, you'll always just, you're in it together, and we're going to do everything we can to help one another to get through whatever the race throws at you.
We've all been through our fair share of races and camps and experiences in this field. I think we all understand that, if you're in a very dark, deep space, you will come out eventually. And I think it's you, once you experience that multiple times, you remember that, okay, geez, I don't know how I'm actually physically going to carry on now, but you just remind yourself that in an hour or 2 hours or a day, I'm going to feel different, and I will have got through it, and I will be able to carry on. And it's one of the crazy feats of the human body and mind, is that we've never really got to a point where you absolutely cannot physically carry on unless you ill or you've had an incident. There's always another gear, or you find the next point where you're able to just see things differently, or you find energy somewhere, or you've smashed something in your mouth that makes you feel different. And you'll get through this little patch or period or negative spot, and probably feel excellent in a couple of hours.
On one of the trekking legs, we came across a team, and the girl was, first of all, the guy in the team wasn't feeling great, and he was throwing up. A couple of meters further along the track, the girl in their team was sitting in a heap on the ground, just tears rolling. Could tell she was just in a terrible space. And people go through those moments, and fast weight is a very, very big part of adventure racing. I think it's really important that people each individual needs to know their why. Why are you out there, and in times like that when you're feeling really low, you got to dig deep and know, why are you there and why do you want to carry on? And it's a personal choice that you're out there in the first place. So you just got to dig deep.
I know you said you obviously haven't had a chance to think of what comes next, but what kind of happens now in kind of like the next week, the next month, in terms of regrouping and going forward?
We'll eat some food and sleep and eat some more.
Sort out gear. We've been lucky. We've been able to do a lot of cleaning already of gear yesterday. But it's just reflection. It does take time. Cool. We can say we sat and reflected yesterday already or whatever, but there will still be reflection for another 2, 3, 4 weeks and probably even longer on the race. It's how these things do affect you. You go into just places and then it takes time to process. There'll be reflection over the coming weeks, I'd imagine.
What's starting to emerge for me, like after this experience, is that I feel like there's definitely some unfinished business out there. We had a solid race, and I think we're all feeling pretty content and very feeling well achieved for just having crossed the finish line. But I do feel like there's unfinished business, and maybe that'll be something that we discuss and see how we can improve on moving forward. But as South Africans, we're a very proud nation and team and want to represent, and there was one other South African team, and I think we did hold the flag high, and we can be proud. But we definitely want to represent to the fullest. We want to see how we can always improve.
So back next year.
Let's see.
That'd be great.
As I said to Graham, I'm in absolute awe. Obviously, I didn't know much about the sport before I chatted to you guys. And it's like mind-blowing to have also watched that group and just followed along. It's unbelievable. So well done, and enjoy the rest and the food. And I'm sure we'll chat for more reflection in the next sort of like month or two and see what maybe then you would have learned lessons.
Thanks.
Dean. Appreciate it.
Cool.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks, Dean.
Bye. Feeling fired up after this incredible episode? Dive deeper into the world of trail running by exploring our other episodes, available wherever you get your podcasts. We're eagerly awaiting your feedback as well, so connect with us on Instagram @TrailChasersPod. Don't hold back. Like, comment, message, and share your thoughts. Until next week, keep chasing those trails.